Man, I really like this shot so much. Boom. Wow.
Oh, life is bigger. It's bigger than you are not me. The links that I will go to, the distance in your eyes. Oh no, I've said too much. I set it up.
Okay, first thing first, that introduction shot is just brilliant. It reminds me of Andrei Tarkovsky, this Russian director. If I had to guess, seemed to be inspired by The Stalker, which is this incredible movie of Andrei Tarkovsky. There is some things that I know already about the song. The meaning itself, Michael Stipe said it was about a love obsession, but already from 1 minute in, and you already see that the video is layered more poetry. That jar of milk falling into the ground, you know, it's obviously it's very symbolic, and I'm thinking several things there. Music wise, that mandolin kicking in is just absolutely brilliant, the main feature of that song. But again, it just, you know, when the lyrics come in with that melody line, it just seals it completely. That's the brilliant part, absolutely.
That's me in the corner. That's me in the spotlight, losing my religion.
Beautiful.
Trying to keep up with you, and I don't know if I can do it. Oh no, I've said too much.
Wonderful.
I haven't said enough. I thought that I heard you laughing. I thought that I heard you sing. I think I thought I saw you try.
I say cry. Okay, another thing, beautiful, like the layering, like especially in that part, like I thought I saw you cry. I saw you try, and which is layered with also the higher voices and the violins, you know, the string, which is just elevating everything. Absolutely fantastic. Then there is something about the poetry of the video, you know, this angel theme that comes back in different area. There is also what it's supposed to be. This I know. There is a saint here that is pierced with the arrows, you know, with the arrow taped on his body, which supposedly this is Saint Sebastian, which was a patron of plagues. It is the patron of plagues, and there is a meaning about this. We're going to discuss it in a second.
Whisper every waking hour. I'm choosing my confessions, trying to keep eye on you, like a hurt, lost and blind fool. Oh no, I've said too much.
Wow, wow, wow.
I set it up.
Beautiful.
Consider this, hint of the century. Consider this
Fantastic.
slip that brought me to my knees, failed. What if all these fantasies come flailing around? Now I've said too much. I thought that I heard you laughing. I thought that I heard you sing. I think I thought I saw you try.
Okay, listen, here there's a lot of things which I found interesting, because you got this fallen angel theme, right? different culture, they seem to struggle on how to interpret this spiritual thing, spiritual being. You know, in one instance, you see those older men's like mocking the older man. They take the wig off and they seem to be skeptical, right? And not believing him. So here you have these other people which they have approached, like they've gone, let's say, to the technological approach. They're trying to replicate what they saw with technology. So there's all this layer which I find it fascinating.
That was just a dream. That was just a dream. That's me in the corner. That's me in the spotlight, losing my religion, trying to keep up with
Fantastic.
you, and I don't know if I can do it. Oh no, I said too much. I haven't said enough. I thought that I heard you laughing. I thought that I heard you sing. I think I thought I saw you try.
So like I was saying before, this is supposed to be San Sebastian, which is the patron of plagues. So there is a behind the scene here regarding Michael Stipe, which supposedly is a queer man. And at the time was criticized that people probably wanted to know his sexuality, whatever. We are talking also about the 80s, the AIDS epidemic.
I know drug addicts get AIDS, but I shot up just one time, so I'm not losing any sleep over it.
The first time with drugs can be the most dangerous. That's when you're most likely to share a dirty needle.
So it seems that the choosing San Sebastian here as a young feminine actor, right, depicted in this way, was also trying to send a message. The Michael Stipe, Renato Russo, Legia Urbana connection, it's not clickbait. I was actually very much interested to learn that Renato Russo had lived in the US for several years because the father had to work for an American band, so they moved in New York. He was exposed to American culture. He later on became an English teacher. The mother was an English teacher, and it was for a few years before becoming popular. But the connection with Michael Stipe, I think, came later on because Legia Urbana and Renato Russo were already big, huge names in Brazil before R.E.M became big with their song and with Losing My Religion. Later on, Renato Russo described a sort of spiritual connection with Michael Stipe, and I suppose that to do also with not only the music, because both bands defined a generation with their sound, but also at a personal level. Both they were big advocate of the LGBTQ movement very early on, and I suppose there was that level of connection. He probably saw himself into Michael Stipe the same way he was being scrutinized and analyzed by the media. So that was very interesting to see this kind of more intimate connection between those two characters, right? Very two iconic frontmen.
That was just a dream. Try, cry, why try? That was just a dream. Just a dream. Just a dream.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So man, it's so interesting because there are so many details. Like you see everybody, every one culture is like, you know, they have their own interpretation of what they saw, so to speak. It's interesting that while he's dancing, right, the milk is still there. Also at the end of the video, you see like those wings popping up behind him with the scriptures and some other, you know, figures which, you know, before we have seen as the other member of the band. But metaphorically, this seems to be also hinting at something, perhaps wanting to say a message of hope. You know, the spilled milk hasn't been broken yet, you know, or delusion hasn't been broken yet. I also wonder if there is a little bit of like, the milk as a symbol. Don't cry over spilled milk, or something that basically a mistake that cannot be redone, or the loss of perhaps innocence, right? In many paintings in the past, they used white, like the ermeline, like in some Da Vinci paintings, for instance, right? As that symbol. So I'm just pondering here if this is ending on a hopeful note, despite the fact that the singer, the story seemed to be struggling also with whether or not all that it's been believing in was an illusion, was a dream, right? Or even the love story that he thought he was so engaged in. This love was just a fantasy. So there's different layers, and this is what it's powerful about songs like this, which they lend themselves to different interpretation that become much bigger than their initial intent. And myself, I find myself being in awe of all these poetic details of the song, and on top of the incredible, like just being able to put together the melody, the transition, the crescendo, and all the different layers of embellishment in such a way that just becomes, transcends culture. This song is famous in Brazil, in Argentina, in Indonesia, in Italy, in the UK, in Mexico, doesn't matter. So are those like, really iconic songs which they just hit you everywhere.